Schwartz from petsphotography.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's me, and that's my website. That's correct.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, how about you start off just by telling us a little bit about yourself, your photography background, how you got into it, your training, that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, we only have an hour, so I'll have to give you the short version.
All right.
I'll tell you this. Back in the well, I was you know what? I grew up into a family where photography was part of life, and I was born in the 50s, like the early 50s, and okay, 1951. I said it. And that I grew up in a family. We had a big family, 5 brothers and sisters, and my grandparents lived in the house, and my parents, and we always had family affairs, things going on, and my mother's best friend was married to a photographer. So we always had whatever was going on. This guy was always there with a camera, and it really intrigued me. He was always having fun. He was making us smile. We were showing us pictures, and I really just became, from a really young age growing up, a camera nut. And by the time I was in high school, I was taking photography classes in school. And I grew up in Long Beach, New York, which is a little beach town, about 30,000 people. But it was one of the first places on the East Coast, anyway, where people started to learn how to surf. And so I was 13, 14 years old, surfing and taking pictures, and I sort of became a little surf photographer in the neighborhood. And that was sort of my beginning of doing pictures of stuff that wasn't just in my house. And you know, they had like a couple of magazines back then, nothing like they have now, but and the pictures weren't anything like they are now, but yeah, I would take pictures and send them into these magazines, and that was sort of the start of me taking pictures. I wouldn't say professionally, but in that sort of concept of taking pictures to give to somebody else to share with other people. And I would say in the 70s, you know, after high school and college and you know all that, I moved to California to go to school. Came back to New York in the mid 70s. I got a job in an animal hospital. I wound up working there. Don't ask. And yeah, after college, that's what my parents wanted. I was a receptionist in an animal hospital, and
Perfect.
they trained me. I became a veterinary technician. They sent me to grooming school, all this stuff, and I was in there. But so what happened? My start in really professional photography was I would groom dogs for people as they came in the hospital, and take their pictures. We'd hang them up in the waiting room, and somebody one day said, "Oh, can I buy a picture from you like that?" And you know, it took me about 5 seconds to realize I might be onto something else. And after you know a little more time in the animal hospital, I decided I wanted to try and be a photographer and get paid for taking pictures. And I looked in the newspaper. It was I'll tell you what, the first day, well, I looked in the newspaper. I saw an ad. It said, "Believe it or not, photographers wanted. We will train you, we will give you equipment, and we will pay you." And I said, "Holy, you know." And so I called them up. They said, "Sure, come for an interview." I went for this interview, and it was a job doing what we used to call, you know, in the business they call it kidnapping. Back then we used to go house to house taking baby pictures. You'd go to somebody's, they had a newborn baby. The hospital would give the photography studio the name and phone. They'd call them up and offer them a free picture. And if the photographer came over to the house, and so we took a whole set of shots. We had to take 9 different poses. You know, there was a whole routine to it, and then try and sell them pictures. You know, after the free one, of course. And that was my start in photography. I quit the animal hospital, and I'll tell you now, that was January 4th, 1980. And since then, which is 34 years in a little few months, I've been a professional full-time photographer. But I'll just give you, I know we only have an hour left. But I want you to know about this, you know, how I got what I'm doing today. So I did that baby stuff for a while, and then I somehow met somebody at one of the local newspapers, and I got into some photojournalism, taking pictures around town, chasing fire trucks and that stuff, and giving them to the paper. And then I got involved with some bigger newspapers, using those little clips from the small newspapers. I had some credibility that I could take a picture, and I started doing some work for the New York papers, Daily News and New York Post and that sort of thing, Newsday, and became a photo editor at one of the local newspapers. Around that time, by then it was 1984, 1985, I got into school pictures and camp pictures, and I did that for quite a few years. Every day getting up at 5, 6 in the morning, taking pictures of 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 kids in a day. I became a group shot specialist, doing the individuals and then the group shots, and that's what I did. And, then I started to do some more sports photography for a tennis club. And one day, I'm the receptionist at the tennis club. There was some big tournament. John McEnroe was there, and we were doing these, press pictures. And she says, "Oh, I'm getting married. Do you do wedding pictures?" And I said, "Of course." Which was a lie. I had never taken pictures of a wedding ever. But, I knew enough to say, oh, there's somebody going to offer me some money to take pictures. Of course, I'll say yes. And so she booked me. Listen, I don't recommend this, but this is what I did. I went to a friend of mine who was a photographer. She gave me her book of pictures, and I took it to this lady and said, here's a sample of my work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, it's bad. Well, look, it was 1980-something. And she hired me. So what happened next? I went to the library, which is the thing we used to have before Google, and I got some books. I got like 5 or 10 books, all about wedding photography, and I essentially taught myself what I had to do. I made a shot list. I practiced. This is what I did. I practiced. I got friends of mine together. We practiced posing. I take pictures and see where the shadows were going. I got one of those mannequin busts from a hat shop. I bought it and I set it up in my house. I take pictures. I got a clip-on light from the hardware store, and I put it in different spots to see what kind of shadows it made, and I sort of just learned like that. I took the wedding pictures. They loved it, and so from then on in, I had my own wedding pictures to show, and so then I got into that. And of course, once you do a wedding, then you do another one, and then you get the bar mitzvahs and the sweet 16s and all that. So in 1992, after all of that, I opened a studio in New York, on Long Island, and I had sort of 3 basic divisions. One which was we did school photography, and we specialized in nursery schools. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. And then we were doing the weddings and events, and then we were doing just like portrait work, family portraits. And I want to tell you, because I know I'm a pet photographer, but there's other stuff going on back there in my past. I specialized in nursery schools for a reason. And here's what I found out in the school photo business. When you go to the public schools, you're dealing with a PTA president or PTA committee who books the photographers. And what that means is no matter how good a job you do the next year, when the next PTA president is there, you have to start over. And I found out that if they have a brother who has a daughter who has a friend whose next door neighbor is a photographer they like, then you're out and they're in. But nursery schools, religious schools, and private schools, you're hired by the person that owns it. And if they like you, you get to stay forever. And that's what I found out, and that's what I made my niche. I found out that nursery schools have a benefit of private ownership, so you're not dealing with somebody new every year. And if you do a good job and don't give them a reason to get rid of you, they don't. And the other thing I realized was that the nursery schools are really the first chance to get some real pictures other than those baby pictures, and especially back then. We're talking about 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. It was a different climate in the photography business. And What I did was I did school pictures a little bit differently. Everybody was doing like this. You sit like this with the hands with a painted bookcase backdrop behind the kid. I'm sure you've seen those if you didn't have one yourself.
Hmm.
And I thought I'd do it differently and started bringing seamless white paper and doing them almost like a fashion shoot, but with nice little kids' props and clothes. And it was a big hit. And I did that for many years. So we were doing that and doing the weddings and all that stuff. And very successful. At one point, we had about 14 people working for me in that. You know, we had production assistants, had a retoucher, an airbrush person. Back then, you know, you did retouching with a paintbrush and oils and airbrush. And, you know, we had I hired a couple kids from the high school to help out, packaging pictures to send out to the schools and stuff like that. A few photographers on staff. You know, very busy place. And around 2001, so fast forward about 10 or 12 years, 2001, 2002. Um, I got a call from somebody who I had worked with years before, and they were in Canada, and they had a business proposition, and it's really intrigued me. And what it was is he had a friend who owned some portrait studios in Zales department stores. Now Zales in Canada, from what I remember, it's like Sears in the U.S., where they have these portrait studios in these department stores, you know, where people bring the kids for their pictures. And he owned a bunch of these, 50 or 60 in these Zales department stores, but he was had gotten a call from PetSmart, which at the time probably had 500 or 600 stores in the U.S. and Canada. I think now they have about 1,200 stores. And they were interested in, or he made them presented them with a plan to do the same sort of standardized kind of work in the pet stores with pet photographers, because the way it worked was every store would hire their own photographer. You know, the store manager would know somebody, or he'd look in the phone book, he'd find somebody to come and do pet photography. And it's not as popular as it is now. Back then, it was sort of just the start of that kind of photography.
Hmm.
But what happened was every store had a different quality, every store had a different price. They couldn't do, and for a company that's large like that, their worst nightmare was they had to make a different advertisement for each store. And so when he proposed, well, listen, we'll put together a team of photographers, we'll train them, they'll use our equipment, we'll use our prices, we'll do the processing, we'll send you one invoice, you can make one advertisement. And it really made sense to them, and they made me an offer to come work with them. And so that's what I did. I sold my studio. I sort of just closed it first, but then after a while I saw this is going good, and I closed the studio.
Okay.
And I essentially, my office was in Canada, in Richmond Hill, just outside of Toronto. And I had my apartment on Long Island, but what I did was commute. I spent about 5 days outside of my home. And we began a mission of hiring people around the country, around Canada, and we moved into the U.S., and we sort of built this thing up, and we were serving hundreds of stores for them. And then Petco, their competitor, they called us up, and they wanted to do the same thing. So this company just kept growing and growing, and I became the operations manager. So they had the president, the vice president, and there was me, and I was in charge of day-to-day operations. We were at that point in 33 states and 600 stores, and so it was quite a big thing. And in 2005, I decided. Like a lot of people do, I'm doing all the work, they're getting all the money, and I left, and I came back to New York, settled in, and I went to Petco, and I approached them with an offer, and I knew what troubles we had, and I was the troubleshooting guy, so I said, look, I'm starting my own company, I want to do what they're doing, and to tell you the truth, I want their territory. And they went for it. they said they liked me personally. They knew me because I was the one on the phone with them all the time, and they gave me a chance. They said, "Look, we'll start you out with 20 stores on Long Island, and if it goes good, we'll go more." It was a couple months. I was doing 50 stores, and then they said, "Okay, we'll give you New York, New Jersey, Connecticut." All of a sudden, I was doing 80 stores. I hired more photographers, and it just went from there. So, since 2005, that's been the name of my company, Pets Photography Studio, at petsphotography.com, and that's what we've been doing. We now work with, I've worked with PetSmart, Pet Supplies Plus, Petland Discounts, all kinds of different chain stores with hundreds of stores, and that's currently what we do. And it's just the greatest thing for me to be able to use my, obviously I worked in an animal hospital. I've always had pets, and I love animals. I obviously love photography, and to be able to mix the two together and become very profitable at it at the same time and successful, and was just, to me it's just a blessing. It's, I'm going to, Confucius said, find a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life, and that's what I feel like I'm at. I get to go play with dogs every day and cats
Yeah,
and
very cool.
and take pictures. And this is what, see, the whole thing is, Josh, that's what I would be doing anyway, right? Even if I wasn't that's what I'd be doing. I'd be out with my camera taking pictures of animals, and that's what I love. So that's my story, baby.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions I like to ask early on is, what kind of gear are you using now?
You know what? I'll tell you what, I use mostly shooting with a Canon. I should say I've sort of morphed. Yeah, okay, what I'm using now. I use Canon cameras. I shoot mostly with a D40 or 40D, and I know people go, "Oh, you don't have the latest stuff." No, I don't, because the way that we do it, we um, it's a solid piece of camera, and we go out every single day. That camera is packed up, 350 days a year, in and out of the box, and we use, it. We have a studio where we do some more of the high-end work, but my niche is going to locations. Like I said, we go to these pet stores where essentially we set up these studios for the day and break it down. Just like school photography. I took the school photography model
Yeah.
of, sending a photographer to a place, or you start in the morning and you set up your stuff and you pack at the end of the day, and the next day is another location. That's what we do. So I don't really use anything that I have to worry about getting knocked over, and which is really the thing that happens most. The dogs come in, they get excited. I've had to figure it out over the years to find the right kind of light stands and tripods and things so that that stuff doesn't happen. But that's what I use. As far as the lenses go, I have just depending on the size of the dog and how much space we have in the store, it could be anything from 75 or a zoom lens, a lot, 28, 105, 28, 85. So it really just depends. The kind of work that I'm doing, we're not making billboards out of it, and it's not something where I need to have the very best equipment. But I can tell you this: we make the very best pictures with the stuff that I use anyway. So the other photographers that work for me, they all have different stuff. So I can't speak for what they're using. All I want to see is the results look good, and so that's what we do. In my studio, yeah, on the road I use monolights in the studio. I use Nova. I have Novatrons. I have Alien Bees. I have a whole slew of stuff, and it just depends on the mood and whether or not I lend something to somebody or what we're going to use in the studio. I've never been one of the people that feels like, oh, a new camera came out today, I have to get it. A new computer came out today, I have to get it. Even my car is not, I could get a new car, but, I don't see the point. What I have works for what I do, so I stick with it.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. What would you say the biggest hurdle is when you were starting out with the pets photography?
You know, the biggest hurdle, ooh, that's a good question. The biggest hurdle is getting started in pet photography. Um, I would say would be um, getting people to understand that it's not that easy and that the prices we're asking are justified. And here's what I mean by that. When you're home and you whip out your camera because your dog is laying on the couch and looks cute, and you take a picture, and oh, so cute, isn't that great? You think somehow that when you take it to a photographer who doesn't own the dog, who's not in your house, when the dog is not sleeping on the couch, is just doing the same thing you are. And I suppose that translates when they have little kids too and stuff. So they think, oh, what's the big deal? Why is it so much money? And it was just sort of a matter of convincing them that what I do, letting me do what I do, and see that that they're really going to like it, and that it's worth what we ask. And pricing's a whole nother thing because everybody's got their own idea of prices and stuff like that. And but that's probably was the toughest thing. It's not the worst thing in the world, but over time, as the stores promoted it, I mean, we've done tens and tens of thousands of dog pictures and cat pictures and other stuff. People come with dogs and cats aren't the only pets. They have birds and ferrets and different kinds of reptiles and all kinds of stuff that I get to see.
Oh, that sounds pretty exciting. So basically these stores get or you sign up with these stores or whatever, right? Or you get them as clients, and then they just
Right.
kind of advertise like a week ahead of time or something, and so you don't have a whole lot other than going and talking to these stores. As far as marketing and stuff, they do a lot of that for you, don't they?
Yeah, well, this is part of the genius I am. Well, basically, look, here's the deal. Like I have essentially, let's say here on Long Island, essentially 25. I have my one basic photo studio, but I essentially have 25 locations where we take pictures with some of the chain stores, and we do some of the smaller stores too. So essentially, those are all my photo studios. The advantage to that is there's a few advantages. If you're in a certain location, you're only going to be able to grab customers from a certain distance away. People that live 60 miles away or 40 miles away are not usually going to come to a photographer when they're going to pass 5 or 6 or 7 to get to you.
Yeah.
Um, so by me being able to have these locations that are all over the place, right now 3 or 4 different states, we're able to grab that market. So I have that advantage. The other thing is that yes, we get to use the store's customers as well as look. It's a symbiotic relationship. After all these years, we do have a following of our own, and so we do bring new clients to these stores that wouldn't be in that store otherwise, except today's the day the photographer's there.
Right.
And we also get to meet clients who we wouldn't have met otherwise because they live too far away or they don't know about us. So yeah, the stores do advertise. And I advertise as well. I shouldn't say. Well, we call it advertising today. We call it marketing. And you know, to tell you the truth, I in the 34 years I've only advertised once or twice. I think sometime in the mid 90s I bought a page, an ad in the yellow pages.
Okay.
Um, I can't remember, like maybe it was $300. I bought a full page ad. It was describing school pictures, weddings, kids, babies, the whole thing, and it didn't help that much. And I said, what a waste of money. And but what I found is that if you do a good job, if you provide great service, if you make people happy, they're going to talk about it. And I've been able to essentially go all these years without ever advertising. Everything I've done is on word of mouth. The little bit of advertising that these stores do, you know, they put up a flyer in the store, they give out some flyers at the counter, they put up a sign in the store, and not a week, a few weeks, you know, we try and get a few weeks of them promoting it for us. We work by appointment only, so that we know when the photographer's coming to the store. Exactly how many people are expected to come in. If we have time, we'll take a walk in, because that happens. People, you know, walking through the stores. Oh, look, they do pet photography. I didn't even know such a thing exists.
Yeah.
And you know, we either have to say, "I'm sorry, we're booked up," which we hate to do. On one hand, we love to do on the other hand, because it means we're booked. But
Exactly.
um, we'll take people in. We'll try and squeeze them in like that, and just get another customer like that. Um, so yeah, it's really a great way to do business. Um, Partnering with other companies, whatever, you know. And I might add that it's not the first time I've done it. When I was doing back when we had the studio, and we did some modeling portfolios and things like that. We got hooked up with a couple of the beauty salons in town, and we'd have days where it was a makeover day, and we did a lot around holidays, Mother's Day, and um, we'd set up a portable studio in the salon, and the people would come in, they get their hair done, their nails done, their makeup done, and then we take portraits for them. It was sort of the original glamour shots, and then someone said, let's just make a studio that does that. But you know, we were doing that, partnering with these places, and it's the same as the thing we're doing with the pets. So you know, the concept of what I do is not limited to you know, pets and pet stores. Almost any kind of photography you do, if you want to, you can figure out how to take advantage of partnering with others. And you know, the part of the advantage is if you split the cost of any promotion and advertising that you do, and you pick up their clients and they pick up yours, and it's really a great way to do things in this competitive market of photography today.
Yeah, I've had a couple of their other interviews today, and that has been a theme that's just run through every show, is that kind of building relationships with others, um and really working together is one of the best things you can do for your business. One, it keeps you from being just a lone ranger and trying to do it all by yourself. Um, but like you said, it also helps split some of those costs. It helps get your name in front of people that may not have heard of you otherwise. And so it's very good
Yep.
advice.
Yep.
Um, what what would you say? Or I know I was going to ask you, social media. How have you been using that? Because I see you've got a pretty massive following.
Uh, you know, for such an old fart, I do pretty well with the modern stuff.
Yeah.
I I do well with the social media. I've excuse me. I've figured out how to make it work for me, and you know, sometimes that'll translate into something that others could do the exact same way, or that you sort of have to figure things out for yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, I found out for me and my business and what I need, uh, Facebook is not the real way that I made most of my connections I did on Twitter. You know, I think I got into Facebook and Twitter right around the same time, which is probably only around 2009. You know, when I look back at I just got a thing from Twitter that said "Happy Birthday." It was, you know, my 5-year anniversary or something, and they didn't send me any present. They just "Happy Birthday, thank you, Twitter," and and I found that using Twitter, and not in the way that some people think of Twitter, like, oh, I'm at the dentist, or oh, I just got a rancid Coca-Cola, not that. We use it, in the sense of business, and more like business to business than any of the personal stuff. It was always about that for me. I signed up under the name Pets Photography. My handle on Twitter is @Pets Photography. I didn't use my name. Of course, if I was starting today, I might use my name because now I know a little bit more about branding. Although my pets photography is everywhere. But I used it for business to business, and I was very active. This is how I did it. First of all, I mean today. Oh, I didn't look today, but I was probably around 30,150 followers on Twitter. And when I look up the statistics, I can see that about half of them or their main interest is animals, pets, and the others are photography. So my following sort of splits right about what I am, pet photography.
Okay.
So, and that's pretty cool. So I was proactive, and I am proactive on Twitter. When I see something, I respond to it. For instance, probably one of the best things that I did. I saw somebody writing. I'm sorry about the hand. I saw
That's all good.
somebody.
Don't worry about it.
I saw somebody. You just seen this guy, and I saw something on Twitter. I think it was back in 2010. Some post that a lady wrote. I can't remember what it was about exactly, but I saw that she said she's a pet writer for some pet magazine or pet website or something like that. And right at that time, probably a week or two before, I had done a blog post where I wrote about how professional photographers could take pictures of animals in shelters. And by making a nice picture of the animals using a nice backdrop, they can increase the chances of these animals getting adopted. And in there I said I'm happy to go to any registered shelter in New York State, Connecticut, New Jersey, which is my area, and take pictures for free. And I showed samples of like that the shelter workers took, and I showed samples that I took, and a nice little blog post. It's still up in different websites. And I sent that to her. I said, hey, if you ever want to do a story about something, here's an idea. And she said, she just sent me back something, thank you. And that was it. Never heard from her again. Except about 6 or 7 months later, she sent me a message. And she said, hey, we're doing a story about people that help animals. And would you mind if I interviewed you? And I said, oh, sure, great. And she, I can't remember if she sent me an email with questions or we talked on the phone, but we did an interview. And, it was for this, I thought for an article about people that, volunteer to help animals and stuff. And it turned out that about a month after that interview, she sent me an email. And it had a link to a press release from NBC Universal naming the top 25 pet people of 2010. But the first 3 names on the list were Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Betty White, and then my name.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Tell me about it. And then I looked through the list of 25 people. There was Kevin Costner's in there, and Rachel Ray, and Elaine Boosler, and then a bunch of people that I didn't know. So, it turns out that every year they do this thing, the top pet people of the year, and they take a mixture of celebrities and then just everyday Joes like me who, no big deal. This is just kind of what we do. We find different ways to help, save the lives of animals that can't speak for themselves. And yeah, I get to go the rest of my life, and trust me, I make the most of it. Me and Oprah, we're the top 25 pet people of 2010. So, and that was just, that looks great. That looks great on a resume. It looks great on a website. It looks great, anywhere you could tell somebody, read this. And of course, I took that press release and then I sent it to all the different pet newspapers, photography places, and local newspapers. And so I got written up again and again and again and again in all these different things. So, you have to kind of know how to make use of it. If you want to get on social media and just, read the stuff and go LOL and send it back, that's what you're gonna get back. You have for the thing to work, you have to really work at it.
Yeah, you
And
got to be social, right?
you got to be social. And I became, sort of I started to really look into like the social media. I mean, over the years, I've learned a lot, and I know that Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, LinkedIn, and YouTube, they all have a different purpose. They're all about a different way of communicating with people, and you can't treat each one the same. They don't work the same way. They're not the same audience, and they don't serve the same purpose. On my Facebook page, Facebook page is more of conversations. If you look on my business Facebook page, you'll see people talking about. I post a picture from a photo shoot, and the customer will come on. Oh, I love it! I can't wait to see more. And you get to write back to them, and their friends look at it, and it gets passed around, and it's just a great way to promote myself. It lets other people promote me, and I get to promote others too. I don't really look at it anymore as there was a time in my life when I looked at anyone with a camera as my competition. You know,
Okay.
if I was a wedding photographer, there's another wedding photographer that's my competition.
Right.
Another pet photographer, my competition. You know what? Uh, um, I know now that, and of course, because I'm good at what I do and I'm successful at what I do, and maybe that has something to do with it. But I no longer look at anybody else as my competition. I look at it as that's what they do. This is what I do. If I do what I'm supposed to be doing, which is quality work in a reasonable amount of time with great customer service, I don't. Doesn't matter what anyone else does. See, because this is why people are going to come to me.
Yeah.
So the social media thing, yeah, it's really good. I'm on Google Plus, I'm on LinkedIn, Discus, and Twitter, of course, and um, YouTube. I have a nice YouTube channel, and I have a great video on there, which is actually it's a video that we did. It's a promotional video. I use it on my about page on my website, and get tons of comments about that. As a matter of fact, some other guys did a podcast just about the video
Oh, really?
as a marketing tool. Yeah, maybe you know Trevor Current, or you know of him because he's got a nice podcast too called The Art and Business of Photography. What's it, Digital Cafe or something like
Digital
that?
cafe.
Digital Latte Cafe, something like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, and on there they did that. They found it somewhere. But anyway,
Well, it's a great. I mean,
social
that's a
media is
great
good. Social media is good. Yeah.
using video, especially. I mean, any photographer that can put some video on their site is going to be it's a great marketing tool. It helps your website become more human and less just uh, just a spot for your business to hang out on the web. You get your face on there and you start talking, you connect with people.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, I have the videos of pictures, but if you want to know about me and who I am and what makes me the photographer I am and the business person I am, you watch the video. It's a little bit long for the internet, but I've never heard anybody say they turned it off. Everyone says, I watched the whole thing. I watched it twice. I loved it so much. It's a really cool video. I recommend you watch it. And, you know what? If you watch it today, it'll be free.
Oh, perfect, perfect. I'll make sure to put a link to it in the show notes on the podcast.
Okay,
What
yeah, that would be good.
do you do you tell a story in that video?
I, I tell a few stories, yeah.
Yeah, see that's what's so key about that kind of stuff. When you can tell a story, that's what draws people in. That's what gets people's attention. So it's very important to tell those stories and just connect, just to let people know you're real.
Yeah, the guy that did it was great. I mean, he really knew what he was doing. And I got to tell you something great also. Had I had to pay cash for that video. I don't know how many thousands of dollars it would have been, but um, it turned out the videographer needed some photos of his family and his dogs, and
Perfect.
and we just made the trade. He got what he needed, I got what I needed, and it was really beyond belief of how what a great job he did. And I think I got the better end of it personally, but that's okay. Yeah, the video. He came to me. He came and filmed me working in one of the stores. So we got to, do the whole thing of me working, interacting with the animals, interacting with the customers, how that went. Then he came to the studio, like a B-roll, and he did like, interviewing me in the studio, and um, it's interjected with shots of photos and, things. So it's really good. It's me talking, it's me working, and once you watch that, Josh, I know you're in California, but you're going to want to come here and get pictures done.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
in California? Where are you?
I used to be. I'm up in. I'm about an hour north of Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So instead of sunshine, I get rain.
It's raining here today in New York, by the way.
Yeah.
So I
Last day of
feel, I
school,
feel
and
you.
the kids are bummed out that it's raining, but they'll be fine. So what would you say, if you can think of one? What was your biggest failure in business, and what did you learn from it?
Okay, you know what? I know what my biggest failure was for sure. Now that I was trying to figure it out, but it just came to me. My biggest mistake was this. In I think in 2010, I'm not sure. Yeah, the end of 2010 or beginning of 2010. After working with Petco for 10 years, they got some new person in the corporate office who decided they didn't want to do pet photography nationwide anymore.
Hmm.
So they stopped that program. Um, they started up a couple years later, but that's another story. Um, so I got this message, a letter and a phone call, I think around December 2009, saying that as of January 1st, they didn't need, photography services anymore at Petco. Now, here's the thing. I had 90% of my income was coming from that one client. So when I got that phone call, that meant I was in trouble, and everybody that worked for me was in trouble. So I
Yeah.
made two mistakes. One was I had let all my eggs into one basket, essentially. Okay. When 90% of your income is coming from this and that's gone, like, in an instant, that's trouble. It wasn't even like they said we're scaling back or here's, 6 months notice, get things straight. It was literally they were saying, here's, we're letting you know according to terms of a contract 30 days in advance. Um, you know, and so mistake one, keeping all my eggs in one basket. For those people that deal with, corporate clients or big accounts, that's what you want to think. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing wedding photography and that's all you do, you're going to be okay. Unless you're relying on a wedding planner to get 70 or 80% of your business, because if they get mad at you, then you're screwed again.
Yeah.
So you just, the thing is, diversify where your clients are coming from. The other thing that I did there, Josh, that was really screwed up was I was a little too hopeful in thinking that everything's going to be okay. Hey, they're going to change their mind, or don't worry, I'm going to find some more pet stores. It's not that hard. And I didn't. I kept my staff on staff longer than I should have,
Mm.
using money in the bank to pay them instead of money that was coming in from daily sales. And partly because some of those people had worked with me from day one. I when I left that company that I told you I started up in Canada in around 2001, three of those people when I left came to work for me and left that company and had been with me so all those years. At that point, almost 10 years. So I felt like these were not just employees but friends, and I couldn't say I'm laying you off. I cut back the hours at first. I try and find things for everybody to do.
Mm.
But I really kept them on far too long, spent far too much money. I was trying to be nice, and I was honestly hopeful that I'd pick up another pet store and get going a lot sooner than I did. And there was a bit of a struggle there. So, those two things, all your eggs in one basket, suck. And so it's nice to be the nice guy out at on your job, but you know what? If your situation changes, you have to. As hard as it is to tell somebody, I don't have a job for you anymore. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. And I would say I learned a lot from that, and that was really the biggest mistakes I've made. Today, I work with 4 different chain stores. We got Petland Discounts, Pet Supplies Plus, working on a thing with Pet Value, which just came into Long Island, and believe it or not, we have some more. Still get to go into Petco's again because they started up again, then they stopped again, but now we do it a different way, and so I don't have all that egg in one basket kind of thing. And that's the other thing, when that happened and I started to feel like, oh, I'm kind of lost now, what am I going to do? Uh, it didn't take me too long to figure out that, well, I got to do what I did, back all those years ago. And I went knocking on doors, and I approached one of the big pet chains. They have a few hundred stores, and I got a hold of the regional manager. He connected me with the president of the company, and we started all over again from scratch. And so here we are today. 4 years later, everything's looking good.
I'm glad to hear it, man. That's very cool. If I got one more question for you, and then we'll finish up here. But
Okay.
and this question isn't on the list. This is just kind of a fun question I like to ask.
All right.
What would you tell your 18-year-old self that's wanting to start a photography business? What advice would you give?
Okay. I would say don't wait. Don't, if you feel it in your heart, go for it. And don't feel like you have to wait till everything's in place and everything looks perfect. Just go for it.
Excellent.
I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so for me, everything it has to look right before I'm ready to dive in. But it's a hindrance too sometimes. But if I was young me again, I'd definitely say just go for it. If it doesn't
Yeah.
work out, it doesn't. But you know what? It's better to have tried than kind of like better to have loved and lost than never loved. But so same concept.
Yeah, it's excellent advice. I mean, taking imperfect action is still taking action. That's the beauty of it. And waiting
Yeah.
for everything to get perfect, you'll never get there. You'll never. There will always be an
Right.
excuse for you not to start. So
Yeah.
even like with this podcast, I made the artwork. I hate the artwork.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's going to do some graphic design for me because I know she'll do an awesome job, but I couldn't wait. There we go. Here's the applause. But I couldn't wait for her. She had some health issues and stuff, and I couldn't wait for that to happen. So
Right.
I just threw something together so I could at least have something out there. And that's awesome advice, man. I'm really glad you said that.
Yep. Um, I can't tell my 18-year-old anymore, but I could tell me. I tell myself every day, get over it, Rich, and just do it. Uh, my favorite saying these days is the tree that breaks is the one that doesn't bend.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I tell you, Josh, we're in these photography forums on Facebook, and I see a lot of people say, well, this is the rules, and if you don't do this, this is going to happen. And I treat my customers this way, and um, you, I know you want to end this thing, but I got to just get this out because it kills me that I
Keep
see
on
that
going, man. Keep on going.
I see that the thing that and I'm talking with 34 years experience behind me. The thing that will kill more businesses quicker than anything is not responding to the customer and thinking that you have to tell the customer what they want. No, the customer's going to tell us what they want, and it's all about customer service. It's all about customer service. You're a photographer, but it's a service business, and you can make these rules. So yeah, I see the silliest things, like we're not going to take your picture unless you sign a release that lets me put your pictures on the internet, modify them, and sell them to other people, and and someone's, but I don't want my picture all over the world. I don't want my picture on the internet. It's a picture for me of my family. Why do you have to have it on the internet? Well, then I can't take your picture, or even crazier, I'm going to charge you extra to not do that. I see that. I'm sure you've seen that. To me, it's just nuts. You know what? If you're going to be in a service business, you have to service people, and it's all about making people feel like they're getting something from you. If you look at my website, I have I think 60. I have a page on my website, 65 reviews from customers, and I looked at it the other day, and there's a theme that runs throughout it, and there's three things in there, and this is probably a great lesson for anybody. Just go read those 65 reviews, because this is what you're going to see. You're going to see people talk about the quality of the work. They're going to talk about how much they liked me and my personality, and how easygoing or funny I was with them. But the other thing that almost every one of them has is the service that we provided and how great the service was. And that's probably the most important thing. And I know this. I know that if I go into a restaurant and it has lousy service, good food, I'm probably going to feel like I don't want to go back there and have that experience. A rude waitress, took a long time, and this and that. I don't care that the food was good. But if I go someplace where the food's not good, but great service, and the waitress was trying, or the waiter, and I'd probably go back there. Which means it's not so much about what I'm getting, it's more about the way I'm treated. And that's what I think some of the new people or younger people are coming, they're confusing the issue here in the service business. They're getting it. They're thinking that's some sort of technical or legal thing that they have to be aware of, but it's not. It's just you have to be aware of what customer service is. And I know you want to be a photographer and not a customer service person, but that's what we are. We're not taking pictures of the desert and selling it to the desert. We're selling our pictures to people. And so we have to take care of them. And that's, if I say nothing else today that might help somebody, just take a reassess about how you think your business model is, and especially the people that have been doing it for a year or two and it's been working out. I could tell you from what I've seen, long term it won't work out like that. It just can't sustain itself. I mean, sure, if you have a job 9 to 5 and you're doing photography part-time on the weekend, it might seem like it's working out successfully. But when you get to the point where you want to do this for the rest of your life and you want to do it full time, you have to treat people like the kings and queens that they are. They're the ones paying you, and not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you brought up a restaurant. I kid you not, there's a restaurant the next town over that their billboard says "Great food, lousy service." Like, that's how they market themselves.
Well, that's a little backwards, but
yeah. Well, hey man, I really appreciate you coming on. What's the best way? I know we kind of talked about it, but what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Okay, well, if you want to do the social media, go facebook.com/petsphotography, or at Pets Photography on Twitter, or in Google Pets Photography, or on LinkedIn LinkedIn.com Pets Photography. I have the branding going on. We didn't talk about that, but that's really important. Everything is the same. It's just Pets Photography. My website is petsphotography.com. You could click any one of those links. I have all the links on the top of the page to my social media. Get me any of them is fine. Send me an email, info@petsphotography. It's all good. However you want to. I'm happy to help, answer questions. I have a couple of Facebook groups, one about social media and one about the art and business of photography. They're not big groups, they're little things, but we just try and help each other.
Yeah, very cool. We appreciate it, man. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll be in touch in the future,
Well,
all right?
thank you, Josh, for asking. It was a pleasure, and I'm glad it worked out with the with the Google Hangout instead of what we were going to do. So,
Yeah, it looks like we have one viewer the
fun.
whole time. So thanks for watching.
That's me. No, I don't know.
Perfect. All
All
right,
right,
man. Well,
hey,
thanks again.
whoever you are, go to my website now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll see you later.
All right, Josh, thanks.